Hi, I'm Joey Piziali. I'm here at the Palo Alto Arts Center. I'm going to be speaking tonight with a panel of artists about public art and just our own personal studio practice. I was lucky enough to be invited here tonight because I did a piece for Palo Alto called Suspended Possibilities off of California on the Bishop Building. So that's the piece at the Bishop Building off of California Avenue, and I had the pleasure of being the third part in a triptych with artist Chris Johansson and David Huffman. And I guess I heard that David Huffman spoke here earlier, and Chris Johansson was, I really enjoy his work, so that was an absolute honor and pleasure to get to be able to do a piece with them. So just a couple other views of this, and I got asked why it drips, and I remembered that I think at the end of the day I have this very, for lack of a better term, anal retentive tendency in my painting at times, and I'm always trying to break. And so I felt like when this piece was done, it could have just looked like a vinyl on a wall, and I remember really clearly wanting it to reference painting. And so I wanted the viscosity of the paint to be revealed, so it became more of a painting, and I also wanted the idea of gravity and the 2D objects to become into play in this type of suspended possibilities. So that was that. There was a lot of onlookers while I was making that, so that was a nice dialogue. Again, there it is with Chris Johansson and David Huffman. This next piece is a project that I'm doing in San Jose starting at the end of the summer, early fall, hopefully, if everything goes right. Public art pieces, I'm sure everyone knows, takes a little time to kind of get through the system. And I've got some slides after this that'll explain how I got to this, but San Jose, through First Act Silicon Valley, had invited me to propose for these two murals, one being 136 feet by 50 feet, and the other one being 65 feet by 20 feet. And I came in with what I thought was a fantastic proposal and got denied for both. But what I did is let them know my kind of obsession with the way architecture could come into play in my work. And so in the same day they were telling me I didn't get either one, they invited me to come and propose for this space, which is the parking lot of SoFA District in San Jose. And those are 12 pylons that are about 25 feet. And if you kind of skin them all, it's about 5,500 square feet. And so they wanted me to do something to liven up this area, because this will be the parking area, I guess, for ICA, which is a block away. And we'll kind of run through these and then chat about it. That's a close-up of them. So I don't know, conceptually I've got to find some place to start, and my work is pretty diverse, and for this piece, you can see, going backwards, it's going to be tagged, it's going to get hit really hard. It's between kind of two gaming neighborhoods, and once we liven this place up, it's just going to get annihilated. So I kept thinking about a piece that, you know, I couldn't put rocks in the pavement to distract the skateboarders on this one, per se. And there was two other problems, was that it's a Caltrans property, and these need to be seismically read in case there's a quake or a shake in any way. So you can't cover it with anything that might fill the gaps. So as soon as you're playing in Caltrans property, there's a lot of things that have to come into play. So one would be graffiti proofing that the Caltrans, who is going to do the maintenance on this, could essentially wash up. You can't do that because it's acrylic copolymer base, and that'll stretch. And then, so I was thinking, well, God, if I did anything with any kind of detail, after the first person tags it, gets bombed, they come in and buff it, the entire project's done. So I really wanted a concept that could make this piece come to life and then always be in play. So I started with the idea of these two colors, and then I went to my paint store and I found Right Pumpkin and Walker Lake. And I said, all right, I'm gonna start just playing with color chips. These are going to be my base. And I don't know, there's a lot of artists who have played with color chips, probably the most famous being Gerhard Richter, a long time in the 70s, was making paintings that were just color chips. Fantastic minimal pieces, but I had to play off that. And so what I do is essentially is I take the two colors of the flag and then I kind of create a color field based off of those shades. And what'll happen is, for let's say often orange, we give Caltrans 3 tones of color that when it gets tagged and they have to come into buff it, and buffing is when they blotch paint out a tag, that they'll start to patchwork these undulating colors. So every time it gets tagged, Caltrans comes and paints it, and then the piece starts to perform. So it's based on being tagged. And so that's why I had to have something that would work. And it's been tricky because the neighborhoods are like, so we're encouraging tagging? And I haven't been at the meetings, that these last couple meetings after the first act Silicon Valley said yes to it. But yeah, the idea is that it'll kind of keep taking shape. And then I guess they'll maybe have a stencil to smooth out the bottoms if those get tagged too. But the other thing that they said is they might want to start it at 10 feet high so it doesn't get tagged. I kind of let them know that would destroy the piece, but we'll see. So that's San Jose. Here were the other 2 projects that I got asked to do that didn't work out. This is right next to the California Theater. This is 136 by 50 feet. That was the proposed project, dealing with architectural voids and this kind of geometric abstraction. That's a side profile of what it would look like. And then the other wall, this is just down again, south of 1st Street. And that was it. And essentially, again, it was just kind of playing off this patterning and looking at a lot of, both of these were looking at a lot of you know, Serra's, Richard Serra's, Solowitz, Ellsworth Kelly's. I think what happens with a lot of public pieces, they become dated instantaneously. Well, especially more with murals, they become so dated so quickly. So I was trying to convince San Jose that the idea was working on timelessness. They didn't buy it. But they did give me another shot, so I love them for that. So that's that. These are another thing. I knew I was with sculptors, so I tried to bring all anything I did with sculpture. This is a piece I did in New York, the Bronx River Art Center. And I was invited in to participate in this group exhibition called Freaks of Nature, contemporary takes on nature, I think. I mean, more or less, that was the premise. And so this is at the Bronx River Art Center. So again, trying to find my starting point, did a little bit of research and found that the Bronx River at one point was actually a thriving river. People would fish out of and trap out of it, the origins of New York. And that the silver maple was the indigenous tree to the banks of the Bronx River. And with my social sculpture, I like to kind of have it install and then participate as temporal pieces in public. So it becomes a sculptural element and it becomes a social sculpture. And the internal colors of that were decided they're essentially the 9 subway lines that run in New York City. And so it's kind of, everything's site-specific, all the origins of this are site-specific. And so what it does, that's next to silver maple at the base of the Bronx River. And then I begin my venture into the neighborhood. And this is a Puerto Rican icy stand. And it just color matching. You're just starting to play with the environment. I think the photos are documenting it. They're kind of pieces in themselves, but for anyone who's actually there in the moment, that's the actual piece. I'd say it's much more of a performance. Again, this is just another subway stop because I carried the tree on the subway, which is this. This is the 5-car. And you'll notice in New York, it's like, well, this doesn't faze us. There's a big phallic silver tree in the subway. Let it ride, don't worry about it. So, and then this gentleman is a native of the Bronx, born and raised, and had no idea there were silver maples or that they were indigenous and just loved the tree and was down to take a photo with it. So I thought that was great. And I think that's part of it, is the social engagement. Once you start entering the public realm with these pieces, it becomes really exciting. That's the best part. So this is a show I did at Lisa Dent Gallery in San Francisco. And this is a fabricated model of what was, there was a Spree outlet in the Dogpatch area of San Francisco. And this, I would go to the Art Institute and I passed this sign, songs, tags, and it was this beautiful kind of Juddian minimalist sculpture, and I loved it. And I was every day I'd be like, oh my God, it's this monolith that's just sitting there. It's amazing, because the Esprit outlet had been leveled by this time, so this thing was just standing there with no utilitarian value at all, just existing, and I thought it was just amazing. And getting a lot of theory at that time in grad school, so I was like, this is amazing. No one sees this, I see it. It's a perfect Judd piece. So I remade it. It's steel, but it's all wood armature inside and synthetic concrete. So I could again move it and place it where I wanted to. And my whole idea was taking it out of its original context, which was first being an Esprit sign and then being this site of tags, and trying to elevate it, because I saw it as a piece of art. And so I said, well, if I put it in an art institution, if I keep replacing it, and people see it as sculpture, then they'll see the new setting of it and maybe relate to it. The little girl obviously thought it was great. The dad was not impressed. And so this is Yerba Buena Park. Let's see, City Hall. And this is its tribute to San Francisco. And it was in the recontextualization that it starts to actually slip a bit. People stop seeing it as just kind of urban detritus, and it has the potential. I mean, once it's in a gallery, then it exists as art, and it's not really hard. But again, when I'm moving this around and placing it, and all the conversations I'm having, it's really the best part. So then, and then so I wanted to reverse it. So I said, what's kind of the absurd, to me, what is fantastically absurd about Pack Heights, English gardens, topiaries, made me laugh a lot. So I took English garden topiary and tried to kind of introduce it to new settings to see how it would activate different scenarios. This is dopest dopest mobile home on the block. And then this is I. It's an abandoned home, but it has a topiary. And this is Wayne. Wayne was really great. He actually lives right next to the mobile home, except he moved to Mexico, and I don't know how he got there. But when I went looking for him again to thank him for his participation, I was informed he had moved to Mexico. So again, for these sculptures are, I mean, they're paper mache or these kind of mixed media things, but it's really about the performance and the shifting environment. This is a show I just did in Singapore with my gallery out there, Collectors Contemporary, and I guess this would be more or less what the space I kind of work in, which is more or less mixed media, but I really want it to be about painting. It works on like kind of geometric abstractions. So this particular room, what you're seeing here is, I was looking at kind of formalizing architecture, kind of taking architecture, but taking more like the idea of architecture, meaning how something is built, and applying it to whatever I want it to, which is again the pleasure of being an artist. Nothing has to really work, it just has to kind of make sense to the individual artist. So I wanted to break down, I wanted to get inside the idea of the architecture of white light, that being red, orange, yellow, blue, green, indigo, and violet. And so these pieces have this arcing light. So the red starts, and then it kind of rises and sets of the single point perspective as they kind of cruise through the color field. And that's just one kind of single piece. And again, as I'm always looking at these urban environments and trying to source from it, and I think, I got asked this when I was doing the artist talk in Singapore. I think I like it because all this is found billboard paper. I had like 300 pounds of found billboard paper that's mounted to raw canvas, and then it's sprayed, and then it's sprayed and it's laid on top, and then I work back and forth on it, and I orbital sand it, and it's kind of this call and response, your basic abstract painting. And but everyone's like, why the billboard paper? It's like, I think it looks nice. Good enough answer, but not good enough. I said I think it grounds people somehow in the familiar. So when you're approaching abstraction, there's something kind of grounding in the billboard, in that kind of messaging that we're inundated with all the time, and then it allows this kind of entry point, and then everything else can kind of push and pull and slide around. But I've been working with this for a while, so I was really anxious to kind of get off of that, and this is still in that same vein. And those paintings were all 5 by 8 feet. This is like 6 by 6, but again, the same kind of language. Yeah, that was the second to last piece, and I was collapsing, wanted to really collapse these forms, and then I wanted nothing, so that's just all black. Once the top is gloss, and then what looks gray is just matte, and so they would play off each other. And then, yeah, these are all the same works in the same show, void of anything, really just talking about space and texture. Slide through these. Again, and they're all, I guess with these, again, is looking at as you can see, I kind of work with a couple forms. So there's the wash, there's the spray, and then there's essentially the opaque. It also goes into, let me see, impact, oh, you can't really see that, but it's really thick paint. But it's the idea that all of these various techniques of application have different weights, so maybe it would lend itself to kind of architecture in the sense where you're working with wood, or you're working with steel, or you're working with glass, and they all have weights and densities. And I'm working with, you know, the spray paint, opaque, you know, latexes and acrylics, and so I get to kind of construct these things that to me I think play a lot off of architecture, but are really just about painting. This is actually, if you remember the shot before Wayne, the dopest home on the mobile block, it's kind of based on these World War II. I guess there was the pier right there. They did a lot of repairs for boats. They had these just giant metal latticed things, and it's kind of view across the bay, abstracted out. This is the idea of, again, the prismatic light form suspending this shape and form. So it's like in this cloud of color. The idea of the impossible. And again, the drips, I think, for me in these, although I like it sloppy, it can anally tentative, it's all purposeful, is that it suggests gravity again, and it's that simple play. This one was weird, because I think in this one, it was right near the end, and I knew what I wanted to do, and at this point, I was finally like, what about nature's architecture? And so wanting to play with a non-geometric form and soften the edges, and still using the same formal language I was using. But so this one where it isn't so geometric, but it was just kind of the idea of looking through. It was based on this photograph I love the color of, and it was just light being shot through this silhouetted garden kind of. And then I decided that that was nature's architecture, and that was good enough for a painting. These are crazy because these aren't even that big. They're like 36 by 25, but actually now I want to make them big. I think public art's amazing. I think Palo Alto does an amazing job for the size city, especially. You know, it's a sticky thing. You wish you could get more public pieces. I know living in San Francisco, I think you do as well. You do. You know, that's a storied public art history. But then you look at the really monumental pieces, and it's families like the Fishers who just buy them outright, put them in the city, and then when the city goes up and upwards, I can't believe we spent our money on this, you know, Klaus Oldenburg, and everyone's like, don't worry, you didn't pay for it. But it totally changes the city. I mean, they're amazing pieces, and I think about, you know, the Marc de Souvreau in the city, the Klaus Oldenburg, the Sarah, the new build-out of the UCSF, and it's incredible, but that really wasn't paid for by the city. And we're in an interesting space because you're seeing these individual kind of massive art patrons donating it, and that's incredible because then you don't have as much, it would go counter to the gift idea. So I don't mean to counter the gift idea, but it's like that, it's just like, I think public art's tough. I think if you get a 50% approval rating, you've knocked it out of the park. Because I think public art is just, everyone has this opinion, and I think that's why it gets stalled out so often. But when it is there, you can see how amazing it is and what a benefit it is to a city. and from Millennium Park with the Anish Kapoor sculpture there, and then you know, public art and architecture can redefine a city, drive tourism through the roof, and then that's just, you see the economic, you know, benefits of that. But it's really hard, it's a tipping point, it's really hard to convince people of that. I mean, Chicago doesn't need convincing now, and you know, various other cities. But yeah, public art's an amazing thing, and I think Palo Alto should applaud itself for the efforts it does and the diversity of artists it works with. I mean, we're three very different artists up here, all reaping the benefits of the generosity of Palo Alto and their curiosity into different kinds of art making practices. So, go public art.